So already we've got different lighting, different shading, even on the hint rings. If you look at the bottom left, there's an eagle in the reflection of the water. Different particle and animation for the item box. If you look very carefully, you can actually see the floating wind particle there at the start. Bit of the E3 1-up capsule. It's a shame that we never actually got to see the cave interaction in this demo, because that just has me even more curious if there is any differences there. There's some crazy particle action going on there. It's got the same demo physics interacting with those brick walls. And definitely a positive that retail fixed. We get a good close-up of the X-Stinger's missile model. I really do hope we can get that. Our only chance of us getting it at this point is actually getting the E3 demo. So yeah, you kind of get a bit of a visual on the cave as it fades out. It's not a lot, but at least it confirms that there is boulders there, just like in the final. You can see the capsules to the left there. It uses the same end of the world placement. And there's a bit of a glimpse of the E3 1-up. Just up ahead you can actually see that it reuses the crate positioning from the Xbox Live Arcade placement. And I'm still a bit unclear about that crate, the flash crate, if that plays... I believe it plays the retail sound, being the iron crate sound, but given the Xbox Live Arcade demo, I could be dead wrong. One of the very few clips that to this day we still haven't received a version of without that stupid IGN watermark. So there really isn't a whole lot you can learn from these clips in the mark speed section. I mean, of course there is the more noticeable elements, from the chain jump flips to the lighting, or perhaps more importantly the reflections, the env map in the water puddles. Someone pointed out that there is no 1-up given despite 100 rings, which is a very interesting point I never noticed. I'm still not overly sure about how different mark speed's control is. I'm actually going to re-react to this because it's that fast. I mentioned in the explanation video that he runs faster than the light dash speed, but yeah, I'm starting to have doubts about that. It does look different, but it could be something as minor as just he runs faster and that's it. Or for that matter, it just could be he runs as fast as light dash speed. Ever since Wave version was modded into the Xbox Live Arcade demo, we've been able to confirm that I was actually wrong about the slow and fast speeds after a chain jump ends. I thought you had to hold down the analog to start off fast, and if you didn't hold down the analog, you would run real slow. When it was actually the opposite. If you hold down the analog, you would actually run really slow, and if you didn't hold down the analog, you'd run normal speed. I'm just glad that I was right about the analog making the difference in speed, even if I was only half right. We have a camera when he lands, which is pretty cool. It is a shame that that was removed from the final. What's even more saddening is how that camera and the camera after the final chain jump was even in review builds of the game, but again, was removed in the final. So if it's not clear, the camera here is pretty different. I actually did recreate the FOV to match that of this camera. I mean, even then, this doesn't use the camera from the final. I believe this is the equivalent of the camera from Radical Train plus the E3 FOV that I remade. It's a more easy path to take for those jump panels, because there's 4 there, not 3. Definitely demo placement. And even then, for 3, there's a chance of missing it and going in between them. Whereas this feels a bit more like it was built for normal, which again, for demo purposes, makes sense. Whereas the one we got in retail was more built for hard or very hard. The jump panel speed is pretty much as fast as the chain jump speed. So I believe the lighting here is also different, but I mean, you know, after restoring the gradients for Silver's HUD, and using that with the E3 HUD, okay, albeit a recreation of the E3 HUD, it still looks very different. So I understand capture card quality back then could make the color look very different. There you go, there's a fire particle there at the top left. It's a bit different. It is in the final, but it's not used very often. I don't believe it's even used in Silver's Crisis City. I know it's used in Sonic's first section. Interesting how the way that enemy dies, it's a bit slower. There's the good old hint ring with the animated glow shader. I really hope we can restore that. I don't know how we would even go about doing that, but I'm positive that that's the same model in the final, but just a little bit modified. I think I'm hanging out for that more than anything at this point, because I believe that we can accurately recreate it. It's just enabling a certain shader or an animated texture. So if you look very carefully here, he grabs it, ungrabs it by landing on it, and then throws it even though it's unselected. Something that Boss Silver can actually do in the final, but Player Silver can't actually do, which I thought was a very interesting detail. I wish we got to see more of this semi-indoor area. I still find it interesting that the E3 placement was actually left in the files, albeit a slightly modified version. And get a bit of slowdown, which I forget if that happens in the final at that point. Get a bit more of a good visual on that egg stinger missile. And if you look very carefully, you can actually see the 3 rails above, which I believe cannot be seen on the PS3 version of the demo. Another good way to tell the difference between which console it's being played on. If you look very carefully, you can see a bit of that ring collision from the Xbox Live Arcade demo. It still surprises me that something so unpolished is present in this demo of all things, especially when the patch that restores the demo ring explosion doesn't have the ring collision. You know, they don't do it very often, but they do fade clips into other clips, which, man, I really wish they wouldn't do. I mean, obviously they want to get to the point, but it would be nice if we ever got these clips, but, you know, unedited, no fades, the full recording session, or whatever. But let's be real, more chance of actually getting the E3 demo than the full clips. So for a while I've wondered if the Tornado is different. I believe the Tornado is the same as the final, but it's interesting because it does look identical to the retail Tornado, but when I ported the Tornado to the demo, it did actually look pretty different. It really does seem, in general, enemies are a bit unfinished. I'd be very curious to see the curve differences. It's times like these where I can't help but wonder, like, why did they really not want to show Silver interact with the goal ring and show the mission completed? Yeah. The fact that they released these clips of the E3 demo officially tells me that they either were that confident that their final game would look and play similar to the E3 demo, that they could get away with showing E3 demo clips and pass it as the final. That, or they knew that it was not going to be anything like this, but still wanted to hype people anyway, and what better way than to do it with the E3 demo of the game. Perhaps in that regard, that's the only reason I can think of to why they would fade it out as the goal ring comes into view, because otherwise, why else? Yeah, I mean, it's amazing. You can learn a lot from these clips already, just from, you know, a few seconds here and there. And I mean, this is pointed out, I think more than once, that it is a 360 build, but let's say it wasn't. There are actually some ways to tell the differences apart from the 360 and PS3 version. One example might be the animated textures, so the moving skybox and moving waterfall on the 360 side is actually frozen on the PS3 side. I have not actually seen that eagle in the reflection of the water on the PS3 side, so that may be a difference. And I'm starting to think that the speed up after slowdown could be console specific. But I'm gonna have to look more into that one. It's a shame that we didn't really see much of anything outside of gameplay with this kind of quality being all screen captured. Because I mean really, imagining seeing the title screen, or even the pause menu for that matter, it's a shame, but you know, gotta be grateful for what we have received. We could have had a lot worse, you know, we could have very easily not have received these clips, and all we had to see was what we got at E3. I do feel like the demo will eventually be dumped, but that could happen anytime from the next year to the next 10 years, maybe even longer. Let's just hope sooner rather later. I kind of wish they kept some of the ring placements from the Xbox Live Arcade demo, and the trailer was silver, was seen levitating with objects held. That is a good point. I actually didn't mind the ring trail after you get the capsules after the first eagle. It was a bit risky, especially with the bound being on the same input. But let's say, for example, if this were in Pure 6, I feel like it would have been a lot more of a rewarding experience going for it. And even in the original, I didn't mind it too much. I don't recall bounding to my doom. And as for the circular rings in Crisis City, yeah, it's minor, but at the same time it adds to the stage, so yeah, absolutely. Hey, got it. It's always weird to see rings in places that were not there in the final. I wish I had it, but no, I definitely do not have it. In fact, that's the entire purpose of Project E3, to try to make the real deal using what we have received. I was actually kind of hoping to release Project E3 right about this time. Unfortunately, there is still a lot to do, and I'm still in two minds if I want to move it to retail or keep trying to get it done on the demo side. I think I am leaning more in the direction of moving it to retail, but it really depends on how much we can recreate on the retail side of things. If we can recreate, for example, the ring collision on the retail side, conversely, if we can enable the stumble over on the Xbox Live Arcade demo and disable the weak collision, maybe I'll keep it there. Who knows, maybe I'll release both. You know, I only just noticed this just yesterday. I noticed that there was actually a crate that I needed to adjust. Something as basic as just swapping an explosive crate for a wooden crate. And really, that pretty much sums up the E3 demo's placement pretty well. At least for the first section of Kingdom Valley, because they do swap a lot of things around. You'll have enemies in the final that are placement-wise there in the E3 demo, but they might be a different enemy. An egg stinger may be an egg gunner in the E3 demo, and vice versa. And with that said, I did actually have a lot of fun swapping things around to get Project E3 in its current state. But oh my, the light dash, that was a chore. Thankfully I didn't have to do too many. I only made the rings that were light dashable from the Xbox Live Arcade demo light dashable for Project E3. So yeah, at this current point in time, you can't light dash on every single trail, which I do feel is more faithful to the real deal. I mean, it's not like we see the light dash in action for any other Trails of Rings, or rather any Trails of Rings that couldn't be light dashed in both the demo and the final. I honestly geeked out once I realized that that was an eagle at the bottom left, mainly because really dissecting all the footage, not once do we ever actually see it outside of the reflection. And I mean, really let that sink in, because we've received more than one clip of the player turning around during the wind path, and every time we haven't seen it. I had to reconfirm it just to make sure that I wasn't trying to find something new out of the footage that I've seen hundreds of times. And yeah, no, that definitely is an eagle. I did come across a clip where you can very clearly hear the flapping. Quiet, but clear. Initially I was thinking, hey, maybe this was that one supposed eagle I thought I saw behind the first row of enemies, but I very much doubt that, because the draw distance is too far away to load the eagle. And even then, the distance the eagle would have to travel to get there, it just doesn't add up. Only way I could see it working is if the player loaded in the eagle with the draw distance by going on the path, accidentally dies, and upon respawning, the eagle is still loaded in, and basically flies all the way up to pretty much where I pointed it out in the explanation video. That is possibility 1. I would like to think that possibility 2 is not just more realistic, but I do hope that it actually is the case. And that is if you lock onto the eagle, kind of flies around, and this would lead to the path that we see in the trailer clips, which has been very cleverly recreated by KSX. And I'm glad that I encouraged him to implement that, but, you know, now knowing about this second eagle, I mean, I already pointed out the possibility of there being another eagle, but I wasn't expecting it to be on the other side. This kind of complicates things and the chances of seeing it in Pier 6. If this were done before I encouraged Chaos to implement the trailer eagle, but it's the fact that he would have to go in, put the current eagle back to normal, flying in a circular pattern, implement another eagle, and then tell it, hey, if Sonic grabs on, fly all the way up to that one part in the trailer, and then take your path. It's just a lot of spline modifying and just a lot of work all around, so I certainly am leaning more in the direction that it is the latter over the former. The former, like I said, the draw distance is a bit too great to get to where the player is, even if they did die and respawn. And I don't feel that it's too far-fetched. If you could grab onto the eagle, it would fly up, pretty much leading to the direction we see the eagle in the trailer. Because if you think about it too, we don't really see where the eagle was flying around before Sonic grabs on. He's already grabbed on in the clip. So I really think that this is a possibility. It's a shame we didn't get to see the spin kick in these clips, because I think that is quite a prominent difference, and something, according to Desco, this is something that can't be restored in the Xbox Live Arcade demo, or likewise the retail build. So I think this was modified early on. I'm sure we could remake it, but I mean, that's exactly what it would be. It would be a remake, rather a restoration, because it's not like we would be enabling code that is there but unused. Because right now it is the most noticeable aspect of Project E3 that is heavily inaccurate to the E3 builds. Admittedly, it really doesn't look all too fun. Because, I mean, really imagine it, a spin kick that slows down regardless if you're holding down on the analog or not. Every footage that I've seen where the player spin kicks when moving, they always slow down, so I am positive that it is coded to automatically slow down. So yeah, really try to imagine that over what we got in the final. So I mentioned this in the Patches of 2020 video, and that is for the homing flip animations. If you would land during either the first or second animation, you would see a noticeable change when you would do another homing attack, because this time it would actually play the first homing recovery animation rather than the next, which was a little bit inaccurate to what the patch achieved. This concludes the E3 Clips reaction. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you all next time. Peace.